Good evening, everyone. I want to start by telling you something that might feel hard to hear. You don't have to be angry anymore. I know. You feel justified in your anger. Maybe someone hurt you, betrayed you, or let you down. But let me tell you something. Holding on to that anger is actually making you weaker, not stronger. It's holding you back. It's stealing your peace. Anger is often perceived as something that just happens to us, a reflex that's triggered by external circumstances or people. But the truth is, anger is not some uncontrollable force. It's a choice. In those moments when something frustrates or hurts you, you have the ability to decide how you're going to respond. It may feel like an automatic reaction, but it's actually a series of decisions you make in your mind. Let's think about it. When something happens, someone cuts you off in traffic, a coworker disrespects you, a friend betrays your trust. The first thing that rises up within you is that feeling of anger. But here's where the choice comes in. It's what you do next that matters. You can let that initial burst of anger fuel your next move, or you can pause, take a deep breath, and choose not to engage with it. You're not a slave to your emotions unless you allow yourself to be. This idea that anger is just a reflex keeps us stuck in a cycle. It makes us feel like we don't have control. But once you realize that anger is a choice, you can change your behavior. It's about training yourself to recognize the feeling of anger when it comes up and deciding not to let it take over. It's about realizing that you don't have to react in the heat of the moment. You don't have to lash out, raise your voice, or hold on to grudges. You can pause, think, and choose a different path. What's important to understand is that the power to respond differently is already in you. It's not something you have to look for outside of yourself. So when you feel that surge of anger coming on, remember, you are not a victim of your emotions. You have the power to choose peace, to choose patience, to choose grace. It's not easy, but it's possible. Anger doesn't define who you are. It's your choice whether you let it control you or not. Anger has a way of hijacking our focus and energy, pulling us away from the things that truly matter. When you hold on to anger, you're not just carrying an emotional burden. You're also blocking the very purpose you're meant to live out. Every time you let anger take the wheel, you divert your attention from your goals, your dreams, and your destiny. Instead of moving forward, you're stuck rehashing the same frustrations and resentments that keep you anchored in the past. Think about it. When you're angry, you're not thinking about the bigger picture. You're consumed with the moment, the person who wronged you, or the situation that left you hurt. Your mind races, your heart beats faster, and your thoughts are clouded. In this space, it's almost impossible to think clearly about your long-term vision or the opportunities ahead. Anger becomes a filter through which everything passes, distorting your perception of reality and blurring the path to your purpose. Moreover, anger doesn't just affect your thoughts, it impacts your actions. When you're angry, you're less likely to make thoughtful decisions. You might snap at someone, make a rash choice, or avoid important tasks. These small impulsive reactions derail progress in your life. Instead of taking intentional steps toward your future, you're caught in a cycle of emotional reactions that ultimately keep you stuck in the same place. Your purpose requires clarity. It demands focus. It calls for patience, perseverance, and peace. When anger becomes a constant companion, it's like trying to run a race with a heavy weight strapped to your back. Every time you think you're moving forward, you're held back by the weight of unresolved anger, keeping you from reaching your full potential. Anger also affects the relationships that play a crucial role in your purpose. It builds walls between you and others, and when you're angry, you're less likely to connect, collaborate, or create the partnerships that will propel you forward. People sense anger, and it pushes them away, leaving you isolated and disconnected from the very support you need to fulfill your purpose. Ultimately, holding on to anger is like locking yourself in a cage with the key to freedom in your hand. It's not that the door is locked, it's that you've chosen to stay inside. The longer you stay angry, the further you drift from your purpose. You can't move toward your calling with a heart full of bitterness and resentment. Too often, we let the past hold power over us, shaping the way we live today. The things we've experienced, whether it's pain, betrayal, failure, or regret, can cast a long shadow on our present lives. It's as though we're walking around carrying the weight of our history, allowing it to influence every decision, every relationship, and every emotion. But the truth is, your past should not have the power to define your present. Every one of us has experienced things that could leave us broken or bitter. Maybe you've been hurt deeply by someone you loved. Maybe you failed at something you worked tirelessly for, or perhaps you've made choices that you wish you could undo. Those moments, while real and valid, don't have to dictate your current reality. Just because something happened in your past doesn't mean it has the right to control who you are today or where you're going in the future. What's dangerous is when we let our past define us. We say things like, I'm just not good enough, or I'll never be able to trust again, or I always mess things up. These are beliefs that are rooted in past experiences, but they don't reflect the truth of who we are now or the potential we hold. Holding on to these old narratives traps us in cycles of self-doubt and prevents us from stepping into the life we're meant to live. The more we let the past shape our identity, the more we lose sight of our own power to change, grow, and move forward. The past is a chapter in your story, not the entire book. It might have been painful, but it doesn't define who you are. It's one part of your journey, not the destination. When you keep looking back and allowing the past to dictate your actions and beliefs, you're missing the opportunity to rewrite your story. You're letting a chapter that's already over steal your attention and your potential. This doesn't mean you ignore your past or pretend it didn't happen. Acknowledging it and understanding it is important for healing. But you can't let it trap you in a cycle of regret or resentment. You can't keep reliving the hurt or the mistakes. The choice to move forward is yours. The power to let go of old wounds, to forgive, and to choose a new path is in your hands. The past may have shaped you, but it doesn't have to control you. When we let our past dictate our present, we're letting go of our future. It's like carrying a heavy load on our shoulders that doesn't need to be there anymore. Your purpose, your dreams, and your potential are all waiting for you in the present and the future, not in the past. It's time to stop looking back and start stepping forward with the understanding that your past doesn't define you. It's what you choose to do right now that shapes who you are becoming. Anger is often seen as a physical reaction, an emotional eruption that comes from outside forces, something triggered by a comment, an event, or someone's actions. But the reality is, anger is a battle of the mind. The true fight is not in the external world, but within ourselves. It begins in our thoughts. And how we choose to respond to those thoughts determines whether or not anger takes control. When something happens that makes us angry, our mind immediately starts processing it. We begin to analyze the situation, to interpret the words or actions that trigger the emotion. But here's the problem. Our interpretation often comes with assumptions. We assume the worst. We tell ourselves stories about the intentions behind what was said or done, and we give ourselves permission to feel angry based on those interpretations. Anger begins in the mind and how we think about what has happened. Consider this for a moment. What if instead of instantly reacting to a situation with anger, we stopped and asked ourselves, what am I really thinking right now? Why am I choosing to see this in this way? Most of the time, anger isn't the first emotion we feel. It's often the result of a thought we've allowed to grow unchecked. Maybe someone cuts us off in traffic and the thought immediately follows, how dare they do that to me? Or someone at work takes credit for an idea we pitched and we think, they're trying to undermine me. In both cases, the anger isn't just about the external event. It's about the interpretation we've attached to it. Anger is not just an emotional response. It's a cognitive process. So the question becomes, how do we win this battle in the mind? The first step is recognizing that we are in control of our thoughts. It's easy to feel like we're at the mercy of our emotions, especially when anger rises up quickly. But emotions don't just happen to us. They are shaped by our thinking. We may not always be able to control the initial thought, but we can choose what happens next. We can decide whether to give that thought power or to dismiss it and choose a different perspective. A key to overcoming anger is learning to challenge the thoughts that fuel it. Often, anger comes from a place of misunderstanding, assumption, or self-centeredness. When you're angry, ask yourself, is this really about me? Or am I misinterpreting the situation? Could there be another way to see this? When you start questioning your thoughts, you begin to create space between the event and your reaction. This space is where you have the power to choose how to respond. You don't have to just react automatically. Another critical aspect of winning the battle of the mind is emotional awareness. Many times we don't even realize that anger is bubbling up until it's too late. By the time we're in the middle of an argument or a confrontation, the anger is already out of control. But if you can tune into your thoughts and emotions early, you'll be able to intercept anger before it takes over. It's about learning to recognize the signs in your body and mind. Your heart rate increases. Your thoughts become more rigid. You start to feel defensive. These are all indicators that anger is brewing. If you can catch it at this stage, you can redirect your mind before things spiral. Mindfulness is another powerful tool in this battle. Being present and aware of the moment allows you to detach from the emotional charge of a situation. Instead of reacting impulsively, you create a gap between the trigger and your response. In that gap, you have the opportunity to choose peace. Mindfulness enables you to see a situation for what it really is, without getting tangled in your emotions. Finally, remember that anger often thrives when we feel powerless or out of control. It's an emotional response that gives us a temporary sense of power, like we're taking charge of a situation. But real power comes from being able to stay calm, composed, and centered in the face of adversity. The true battle is not won when we lash out or vent our frustrations. It's won when we take control of our thoughts and decide to respond with clarity, wisdom, and grace. Winning the battle of the mind against anger doesn't mean you'll never feel angry again. It means you'll be able to choose how you handle anger when it arises. You'll stop being a victim of your emotions and start becoming the master of them. Anger often feels like a force greater than us, something that takes over our body and mind in a split second, making us act out of control. We may feel like we're at its mercy, and in those intense moments, it can seem impossible to resist its pull. But the reality is, you are stronger than your anger. Anger may feel powerful in the moment, but it's ultimately a weakness, a response that arises when we let external circumstances determine our internal state. True strength lies not in the ability to unleash anger, but in the capacity to harness it, to choose peace instead of reacting impulsively. When you feel anger rising up inside you, it's easy to believe that it's the most powerful thing in the moment. Your heart starts racing, your fists may clench, and your mind can spiral into thoughts of retaliation or frustration. It's like your whole body is wired to fight, and in that moment, it can seem like anger is the only way to respond. But consider this. Anger is not the true expression of your power. It's a reaction, a reflex. And reactions, by definition, are not controlled. They are automatic, based on the situation. But you have the ability to choose something different. You don't have to simply react to your emotions. You can respond thoughtfully and intentionally. True strength isn't measured by how loud or how intense you can get in an argument or how well you can hold on to your anger and bitterness. Strength is found in the ability to stay composed even when you're provoked. It's the courage to pause, to take a step back, and to reflect rather than respond out of anger. It's the self-betrayal to recognize that while anger might feel satisfying in the moment, it only causes damage in the long run. It burns bridges, damages relationships, and creates internal turmoil. True strength lies in the ability to resist that immediate impulse and choose a path of calm, clarity, and patience. In fact, staying calm in the face of provocation is often a sign of greater strength than giving in to the impulse to lash out. When you can remain steady, even in the midst of frustration, you're demonstrating the kind of power that lasts. It's easy to lose your temper, to let anger consume you and allow it to dictate your actions. But it takes real strength to stay grounded, to stay rooted in peace, even when everything around you is chaos. Anger may demand immediate action, but true strength knows when to take a step back and choose to act with wisdom, not emotion. You're also stronger than your anger because you have the ability to transform it. Anger, like any emotion, is not inherently bad. It can be a sign that something in your life is out of balance, that something needs to change, or that a boundary has been crossed. But how you deal with that anger is where your true power lies. You can choose to let anger build and fester, allowing it to affect your relationships and health. Or you can take that same energy and channel it into something productive. Anger can be a motivator for change, a catalyst for addressing the underlying issues that triggered it. It can fuel you to take action, but only if you choose to control it rather than let. The strength to overcome anger also comes from understanding that anger is often rooted in fear, hurt, or insecurity. When you're angry, it's rarely just about the surface issue. It's about the deeper emotional triggers beneath it. By recognizing these root causes and addressing them, you begin to see that your anger doesn't have to define you. You can find the source, face it, and heal it. In doing so, you take away anger's power because you're no longer letting it hide your deeper emotions. Instead, you're facing them head on with strength and awareness. And ultimately, you are stronger than your anger because you have the ability to choose peace over conflict. Anger may feel like a momentary release, but it's fleeting. Peace, on the other hand, is lasting. It brings stability, clarity, and control. You have the ability to create peace within yourself and around you. It may not always be easy, and it may not always come immediately, but the more you practice choosing peace over anger, the stronger you become. Your strength is not found in your capacity to get angry. It's found in your ability to choose a higher road, to rise above the emotions that try to drag you down, and to live from a place of calm, composure, and control. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful acts of freedom we can experience. It is not just an act of kindness towards someone else, but a gift we give to ourselves. Forgiveness frees us from the shackles of resentment, bitterness, and anger, allowing us to move forward in life without the weight of past hurts holding us back. While it may seem like forgiveness is about letting someone else off the hook for their actions, in reality, it's about freeing ourselves from the emotional prison that holding on to unforgiveness creates. When we choose to hold on to unforgiveness, we are essentially giving someone else control over our emotional state. Every time we think about the person who wronged us, every time we replay the hurt or injustice in our minds, we are handing them power over our peace. This is why holding on to unforgiveness feels like a burden. It keeps us trapped in the past, unable to fully engage with the present or look forward to the future. We carry the weight of our wounds wherever we go, and it affects how we relate to others, how we show up in our work, and how we experience life. Unforgiveness doesn't just harm the person who hurt us. It harms us too. It poisons our thoughts, steals our joy, and ties us to painful memories. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is the key to breaking free from that cycle. When we forgive, we are choosing to release the grip of the past and move forward with a heart unburdened. It doesn't mean that we forget what happened or that we condone the actions of others. Forgiveness doesn't say what you did was okay. Instead, it says, I refuse to let what you did control my future. I will not let it hold me back any longer. Forgiveness is an intentional decision to stop allowing someone else's actions to have the power to shape our present and our future. In forgiving, we let go of the need for justice or retribution. When we hold on to unforgiveness, we often expect or hope that the person who wronged us will somehow make things right, that they will apologize or change their behavior. But waiting for that can keep us stuck. The truth is, forgiveness is not dependent on the other person's actions. It is about what we choose to do with our own hearts. We can't control how others behave, but we can control how we respond to their actions. Choosing forgiveness is about taking back our power and choosing peace over pain, freedom over captivity. Forgiveness is also a form of self-care. When we forgive, we stop letting someone else's wrongs take up mental and emotional real estate in our minds. Holding on to anger and resentment uses up valuable energy that could be spent on living a fulfilled life, building healthy relationships, and pursuing our dreams. By letting go of unforgiveness, we free up that energy to focus on what truly matters. We give ourselves the gift of emotional healing, allowing our hearts to recover from the wounds that we've carried for too long. Another powerful aspect of forgiveness is that it opens the door to healing. Many times, our unwillingness to forgive keeps us stuck in a cycle of pain and hurt. We replay the incident over and over in our minds, imagining how things could have been different, wishing for an apology, or harboring resentment. This constant cycle prevents us from healing because we're not allowing ourselves to move on. But when we forgive, we release the hold that past hurts have on us, and we make space for healing to begin. Forgiveness creates room for emotional growth and restoration, both for ourselves and for our relationships with others. Additionally, forgiveness is not a one-time event. It's a continuous process. It might not come easily, especially when the hurt runs deep, and there may be moments when we need to forgive the same person or situation multiple times. But each time we forgive, we take another step toward freedom. It's a journey, and each step is one that brings us closer to living in peace and joy rather than being weighed down by past wounds. The more we forgive, the more freedom we experience in our hearts and minds. Forgiveness also allows us to embrace a future full of possibilities. It frees us from the bitterness and anger that can cloud our judgment and hinder our potential. When we forgive, we let go of the past and step into a future that is not defined by past hurts. We open ourselves up to new opportunities, new relationships, and new experiences because we are no longer anchored to the pain that once held us back. Forgiveness is the doorway to a life of abundance, peace, and purpose.